Hi,
Hello. Good evening.
episode 47.
Welcome back to Inguko. No. Good thinking? Wow. It's late here. So, this is a podcast.
And all the things, marketing, culture, trends. Here we are. We're talking about advent calendars because I think this is a really important one. Because obviously, wasn't that articulate? They're a thing, as we know, but I think they're becoming, maybe it's more niche. Maybe that's the right word I'm looking for. Because as I was saying, my son uses the typical milk chocolate one, which of course, like that's just his personality. He'll continue to do that. And I was finding, as is my personality, I was finding like rad, more woo woo ones on Instagram that I was like, oh, there's a kindness one and there's a this one and a that version. And then what my daughter ended up buying was this beauty one, but it's like not a kid's beauty, but it's somewhere in between. It's not the most bougie beauty one, but that's a 12-day or, 10-day advent calendar based on beauty.
Yeah, which I think are very popular. The 12-day ones, I think they're 12 days because it's too expensive to make it a 24-day calendar. I mean, like these
Totally.
products, even these minis, like, you can't. I mean, there are for sure calendars out there now that are like, $600, $700, but like, we don't need tweens buying those. I don't think
No,
we need anyone buying those, quite
no.
honestly. But yeah, we were chatting right before we hit record, and I was saying that I have one by Usborne Books that's been really cool. That my daughter's much younger than Kirsten, so she's been really enjoying that. She's getting a book a day. I feel good about
Rad.
it, which makes me feel like, which is, advent calendar for me. And then she also has a reusable advent calendar that I bought from Flying Tiger like 2, 3 years ago now. And it has all of these little slots. And so I can put my own candy or not candy in it. So I've put glitter sticks, like glitter glue, things like that, as replacements to some of the, like there's definitely, like, she doesn't like chocolate, she only likes white chocolate, so there's white chocolate in some of them. Yeah, my daughter is my daughter. But then there's glitter glue and other like mini, like little things of Play-Doh and things like that that make me feel less like, so it's like a surprise. So it feels cool, but it's not necessarily like super candy oriented.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
think that's
definitely
amazing.
candy, to be clear.
I think that's amazing. You're also like sound like which you are, one of the raddest parents in the world of like the book advent calendar. Like I don't even think I would have thought of that. And then the make your own advent calendar. Well done, Betty Crocker of the ages.
I
No
think
one will have
the
any idea who
book
that is.
calendar is like a big push thing happening this year from Usborne, because I've seen them in a bunch of shop windows, like in Italy, but also in Prague. I saw them. I saw them. Yeah, I was up in Salzburg this weekend, and like I
Oh
think there's
yeah,
a big push that they're doing. So
yeah,
I don't
which
think
is
it's like
cool.
necessarily my genius, but it's just like I spotted it and I was like, that feels better than 24 days of like just sugar rush. Because my daughter also opens them as soon as she opens her eyes. It's like,
Right.
let's
So this Hudson,
open
yeah,
the advent calendar, and you're like, oh, like we're just like mainlining the candy at 7 a.m. It's not the best way to start the metabolism in the day. So
yeah, totally. I think there's so much room to like push it even more and more and more. And I think next year and beyond, kind of we'll see the more niche. There's more advertising for it, taking it into all different lanes, and um, yeah, I think it's really
yeah,
fascinating.
it's been growing strength to strength. And I think, one of the trends that I'm going to write about, this is only like very holiday related and very niche, but like one of the trends I'm going to be writing about in the next newsletters, I've noticed that there's like this trend this year of like artist trees. So places like malls, like I've always had cool Christmas trees and things.
Yeah, yeah.
But this year it seems, and I'll do a roundup of the ones, if I can find them again, of all the ones that I've been seeing, but I've been seeing these really cool, like, artists installation trees that are really big. And so I do think it's interesting thinking about how kind of holidays evolving and people want it to be more magical, but then like there's like, yes, there's traditional. Like this year I've noticed again, another thing that's trending is people wanting like ugly ordinary Christmas tree ornament trees like I grew up with, where you
Mm-hmm.
have like all the ornaments from your whole life instead of all the ornaments in one color, which to me is a horrific thought. But so I'm here for this moment too. But I do think it's an interesting, that has not come into advent calendars, right? And that takes time because people plan their advent calendars, like that packaging process is starting yesterday for 2025. So what's going to inform that is what's happening this Christmas. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how like these kind of more artistic like trees and things, like are we going to start to see kind of more kind of cool collaborations or cool
Yeah.
art, or like I don't know if you've noticed any time I've ever posted it, but I probably posted a few times in the letter. There's a person who makes these, those like slot machines that you can get like I don't know, those balls and they come out and there's got like a pin in it or
Yeah, yeah.
a ball or whatever. She makes one where you get art, like small little art, and
That's
she
rad.
does collaborations with stores. So she'll do, I think she did one with like pop up bagel, and so you could put in a coin, like a 25 cent, like probably $1 by the time you put all 4 of them in. And then you got like a cute little original piece of art, like print, like a tiny mini one. Like I could see stuff like that happening where it's less about just the product and more about like experiencing cool things from the brand,
Yep.
like more of a philosophy. Or I could also see multi-brand ones that are done, like they do that obviously. Some beauty ones are done by some beauty companies where it's like, hey, these are all the different products from different brands, right? But I haven't seen like a Gaia meets like Erica Vere meets like all of these cool brands together, and you get like a cool advent calendar of different brands. Like I think
Yeah.
that would be really interesting to see, or like a convergence of like all the cool tween brands versus just like generic tween brands like Yawn or Bioma or the recipe or whatever. So I think that
Totally.
there's room to grow, and I think it'll be informed by what's happening this year for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea. I mean, that almost gives reason to the department store or like Sephora or Ulta to really like take a stance and do something. They have all of those brands in their house. Do something that's really only they can do. I love that. All right, let's dig in. I want to give 2 quick shout outs. Vote for your panel for South by.
Yes, I will include a link.
Great. And if you're in LA, come to the Breakfast Club this Friday. The Rose Cafe in Venice is closing. I have no idea why the fuck it's closing, but we're going to move locations. I know. It doesn't make any sense, but here we are. We'll mourn it another day.
That is sad.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I guess I'm feeling really holiday-esque, end of year, wrapping up all the things. I want to talk about really Spotify Wrapped and kind of what the Pinterest overview. But I think we first, per your recommendation, talking about the ride through, because that was just so rad.
Yeah, I love this chair. I got it from Ali Kaltman, who is also an excellent follow on LinkedIn. She's always posting cool stuff, so recommend following her. But what she's talking about is Taco Bell introduced a photo booth in some of its drive-thrus, and that's like the simple way of looking at it. To me, what they've done is they've introduced their experience as an experience, right? And this was an experience that was like bottom of the barrel experience. Like no one likes sitting in the drive-through lane, and then you take it and you turn it into a theme park attraction, and it's just so genius. It encourages groups, so obviously volume orders, like the more people you fit in your car, the funnier those photos are going to be. So
Totally.
obviously they don't want to encourage people to not drive safely, but like 5 or 6 people ordering whatever they're going to order is genius. I was thinking a lot about how this is 100% something that your kids would make you do 5 or 6 times with various different people.
100%.
So
yes.
There's also like a repeat value, because it's like, hey, we did this with this group of friends, but then I wanted to take my other friend so-and-so to do it. And especially with younger kids, I think that kind of repeating thing is obviously so big, and they love to repeat things. So that's really genius. They require that you download the app to get the photos. So obviously great for data. I mean, data capture. And then the last thing is, like I said, it gamifies the whole thing and turns what should be like just the worst part of the experience, right? The payoff is at the end. And obviously the payoff is at the end, but you've got all the planning. What kind of photo are we going to do? what's our vibe gonna
Mm.
be? How are we gonna pull this off? Like, how can we make this funnier this time around? And so you actually take the time that people are sitting there and you give it purpose, right? And there's the anticipation of it that feels really good, the same way that when you're, waiting for the ride, and you've talked and someone's like, I'm gonna fall asleep like on the ride, and I'm gonna pretend I'm sleeping, obviously there's gonna be a lot of that. And so I think, yeah, I just loved it. I thought it was really fun and clever. And I like that it's not a brand spanking new idea, but it's just a new way of doing something and looking at their drive-throughs in a way that's new, but also photo booths in a way that's new. And I think that's really great. Love that.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for the overview and breaking it down. Yeah, it's so cool. The photos are amazing. It's so rad. But I agree with you. And I think that's the hit for me, is that it's not a new idea, but that's really, to me, what innovation is in a company like Taco Bell. It's really looking at something. It's not, okay, let's create a new conversation, or let's do this, or let's do that. This is literally where people are going every day for their product. Photo booths have been around forever. Like, they're not reinventing anything, but they're really being innovative in the way that they're approaching it. And they're thinking about it in a completely unique way that's super fun, that's super on brand, that really takes the brand to a completely new level of experience.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly the way that brands in general, right? Not every brand is going to be right for the Taco Bell experience. It's not going to be that fun, but I think thinking about it, innovation in that way versus like, let's create a new idea or let's create a whole new conversation. I think this is so spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked it. And whoever came up with that idea and got it pushed through, like, claps to you.
Totally. This is a really good transition to move to Spotify Wrapped, because my understanding of where it started, where it started and where it is now is a big part of kind of innovation and the people and kind of what's happening in industries right now with, we don't need a creative department and we're firing this person, we're firing that. And, this is kind of what you get. So you want to give a little bit of background on Spotify Unwrapped?
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously, like most things, just my personal take on things. Historically, Spotify Rap was started by an intern. It was pitched by an intern, which I love. And I love that they actually took it and ran with it, and it turned into this thing. And for a really long time, it was really fun. And I do commend them for becoming the thing that people look forward to at this particular time of year. Like John Lewis is another one who always had, like, they own Christmas in my mind, about, like, their ads are anticipated. And I do love that this feels personal. And so when they first started it, genius. And I do respect that they've managed to keep it going. I think what's just so interesting to me is that this year I saw literally not one person in a positive way post their original, like their real Spotify Wrapped. I saw two people post about it. Both were parents complaining that their Spotify Wrapped had been hacked by their children. And so they had, like, one person had fart noises as their, like, number 2 played song.
The tracks.
And another one had, like, I don't know, Miss Rachel or something. But and Spotify says, like, oh, you should have a kids account and da da da. I don't know any human being who is that organized to, like, actually switch over to their kids account to play their music. And the fact that Spotify hasn't fixed this is one of my personal biggest gripes with Spotify, because I am the recipient of terrible daily mixes because of this scenario. But
Yeah.
to the bigger problem,
opportunity.
Real opportunity that they could fix very easily. So if you're listening and you work for Spotify, that's my biggest problem. But I think the biggest problem that they had with the Wrapped is that people used it for a meme template. And that's been happening for years now, like, for sure. And it's fun to be part of the zeitgeist, right? Like, so I think actually it does give you your name out in the world, and there is some benefit to that, right? Like in Spotify. Except when you are only a meme template, and then it's no good, right? And so to me, this is that year. We've reached peak of, like, meme-ness of the whole thing, and we've lost the original, like, joy of it. And I don't know if it's just that the creative wasn't good, or that, I think generally marketing teams, like, they wait and they have like an idea and they have to take the style of, they don't know about what the artwork's going to look like, so they have to work on it that night before, and it's like, but it just felt like the moment had plummeted. And they tried to do different things. Like, they did the Google LM thing, that the Google Notebook LM thing that I posted about a few months ago. They did those, and they basically had somebody like read, well, they used the Google LM, the two voices, if you listen to mine, and it like reads you like a podcast about like what kind of things you listen to, which, like, who on earth wants that? And like,
Yeah.
that's not shareable, and that's not fun. And like, the whole thing about it is it's supposed to be really, really fun. And the fact that the only fun came out of it was the meme, with, I think, was a real, I think it was just, it just might have run its course at this point. But the original
Yeah.
idea, I actually don't hate the creative that they came up with. So, like, it's just, I think it might be time to let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen only, to your point, only negative. I've seen a lot of posts on it, but only negative. And kind of what I've seen, and I don't know this. I don't know anybody intimately that works at Spotify, but that I've heard is, it started with this intern, very cool idea, very relevant, and I agree, like, huge props. That wouldn't happen in every company, where they really like supported that, let it run, and supported, and that it was indeed the intern that gave the ideas. We always say, like, ideas can happen anywhere, right? So I give them huge props for doing that and pushing on the idea, but it seems like they didn't come back to it of like, okay, well, this is a cool idea. It's in the zeitgeist. It's happening, but like, is it still relevant? What do we need to do to tweak it? How do we continue to innovate on this idea versus just kind of letting it go and letting it fade out? Additionally, my understanding, and I don't, again, know if this is true, but because I think there's been a lot of, people let go, employees let go, that they don't necessarily have the creative and marketing teams anymore to really get behind these ideas and innovate and do these things. They're leaving it more to performance marketing or whatever it might be. Sorry, let me turn my do not disturb on. To kind of, leaving it more to AI or whatever the versions are, to make it more automatic versus have kind of some creative human behind it, of thinking of like, how do we innovate this? How do we make this cooler this year?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like of all the AI things they could have played with this year, Google LM would have been not my recommendation. Like, I think they're like, if you don't have a small team, if you have a small team or a smaller team, then I think you have to kind of basically plan for how you can mitigate that, right? And how can you have fun with and still make use of what you're doing. And I actually think if they'd have come at it, what's happening in your neck of the woods? There's like a truck in the background.
I mean, it's garbage day, so yeah,
Okay.
Venice.
Like, almost if they'd come at it as like, we are going to give you these meme templates, and we're going to like,
Mm.
like if they had kind of come at the moment in a funny way, like maybe that would have been more fun. But anyway, I think,
I
yeah,
love that.
I think
That's,
it's
yeah,
run its
I love
course.
that. Brands that. But I think it's, had they just kind of gotten ahead of it and been able to see, and as you said, these memes have been happening for a while, I think that would have been an amazing play. And again, it takes a company that can really dig inside of itself and kind of poke humor, which we've seen big brands like Mattel with Barbie be able to do. So never know.
Yeah.
Pinterest predicts it again. Like, I'm here for the wraps. I don't know what's happening. I'm feeling very nostalgic, year end, but that seems
Well,
like we're interested. Like, things are happening there.
yeah, I mean, it also is like what I'm writing about, and I think what everyone's talking about, so it's natural. I love Pinterest predicts every year. I will say this year felt a little different. It felt like they were more focused, and maybe it was just the presentation of it, but they felt more focused on visual trends, like generally speaking, and fashion trends, and less on these kind of societal shifts that sometimes and you can like dig into there, and but it's like, like ski is big, and like they had some in there, but they were kind of more buried. So anyway, I would spend some time with the Pinterest predicts, and you might just need to like dig in a little harder to them than you have in previous years. But I always really enjoy them because they feel like I just enjoy things that are looking forward, less kind of backwards.
Mm-hmm.
They always point out really interesting things. I think they corroborated about 90% of the things that I've talked about in the letter for a year, so that felt nice. We should do an AI that compares things I've talked about and the Pinterest predicts. Yeah, I always think they do a really good job, and I enjoy. And I thought the photography, like the vibe of the photography and things that they shot this year, was higher and it kind of felt like more high end and interesting than last year. I just think the way the content was presented was a little bit harder for me personally, because I love the kind of more societal shift kind of predictions more
Right.
than the visual trends. Like, I
Right.
don't care if pink or brown or whatever is going to be trending. That's not my world.
Brown is color of the year. Yeah, but it might be better. It might make more sense for Pinterest, which obviously is clearly visual. But I do wonder
Totally.
what people used it for. But I can understand why that shift was intentional for them.
Yeah. And maybe that was exactly what people are looking for, and maybe that's perfect for them.
Yeah, we'll just need the cultural trends from you. So, pick on. All right. Those are kind of the main things I wanted to dig into, but I'd love to kind of break down some of the fun for the week, because I thought there were a lot of good bits.
There are a lot of good bits in there. One that I think probably right this second have a LinkedIn post going up about one of my favorites from the fun for the week, which is the Depends.
Yes.
Goth Depends. So we could talk about that, but if you want to
Great.
talk about one first.
Yeah, let's go. Goth Depends. I'm in.
So this was a collaboration. They're called Pit Diapers, and it was a collaboration between Liquid Death and Depends. And Liquid Death honestly does so many of these stunty, virally kind of like things that like that was like much less interesting to me, like that they did it. And it's like, oh, like capture your recycled. How did they phrase it? Like catch your recycled liquid death juices or something like that. Anyway, it was very funny, the language, but like funny how they
it always is. Yeah,
they always do a great job. But what I was excited about was that they could have made this without partnering with somebody, but they partnered with Depends, and I think it was really brave of Depends to do something like that. So that, like, for Liquid Death, this was like a literally like drop of pee in the bucket, but like for Depends, it was like a huge risk. And I think the sentiment that I've seen has been really, really positive. What I loved was that they took an insight that was already happening. So there's all these Swifties who are going to the concerts and not wanting to leave the concert, so they're wearing Depends. And obviously that's not the look and feel of what's going on in the Pit diaper.
I was like, that's the insight?
But that's the insight, which I do like. And I think like it's just brave and exciting, and I think it's cool to see a brand that like is kind of the opposite of brave and exciting. And I spent a bit of time going onto their website today, kind of looking to see if this is a bigger shift. And like they're definitely representing both Depends and other brands. Like there's another one called T something. It's escaping me.
Put it in the show notes.
But yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. But they're definitely starting to represent like people in kind of cooler, more realistic ways of like how people are today when they're 60 years old, and not kind of like withering away. But I do think that just generally speaking, like it's still like the packaging still looks like, I don't know, it looks like a bad, it's like a bad underwear brand. Like I don't even need those from underwear. So why are we like, it just, everything about it. I want to completely change the logo, refresh the logo so that it looks less medical. I want to change the photography. Like I want this assignment so badly. Like I was like, please, if Depends is listening, I am ready and waiting for this assignment.
Yes, you are. Yeah. I mean, I think it's true. Yeah. This is one of your soapboxes, but I think it's true. It's like everything should be aspirational to a certain degree. It doesn't mean make this aspirational and make it like, targeted to Swifties, but it does mean that whoever's buying it wants to feel good about whatever they're buying. They don't want to like throw it in a, cart and be like, oh, I'm not, they want to have some type of comfort within the packaging, the product, whatever it is, even if they're not, proud and featuring it on their kitchen table.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of references that I would give, like, for where things I think could be more interesting. Like, look at, like, Who Gives a Crap. Like, you have your Who Gives a Crap toilet paper, like, out, and, I mean, yes, they have the most cute, like, tissue boxes, but they always have
Yeah.
cute toilet rolls. And like,
Yeah.
most people these days don't have these like big fancy bathrooms where they can, like, not everyone does. And so putting your toilet paper out on display, like, are you asking some poor person to like hide their Depends under the sink where they're like a million miles from where they're actually doing a pee? Like, why not have a cool box that's like out and next to it that you don't feel ashamed to put in? Like, I just think there's so much potential, like not just like in the product too, in the silhouettes, like, but just mainly in the photography. There's just so many things. And I was thinking about, I don't know if you follow TSA now, because I posted about their social feeds a few times.
No, I have
Okay.
not yet brought myself to.
Okay.
That sounds
Okay.
excruciating.
Well, but that is exactly where you're wrong. TSA
I
is
could be wrong.
running TSA is running one of the best Instagram accounts out there right now. And it is hysterical and funny and informative all at the same time. If you're not following TSA, you are missing out. Like, seriously, best meme content out there. And this is what I mean, though, is that like you take TSA, which is basically the worst part of the airline experience, right? Of like
For
going
sure.
through TSA and you're just thinking to yourself, like, you're going to seal my powders. But they turn
I
all
am.
of
It's
their
true.
negatives. They're going to they turn all their negatives and like, into positives. And yes, it's very tongue in cheek and it's very humorous, but like, that's a government agency and they're having fun with it. And to me, like, like if you're thinking about how you've been with going through perimenopause, right? And thinking about how that conversation has shifted, where you're like
Yeah.
talking about the realities and you're laughing about it with your friends and you're sharing about it with your friends. That's happening with incontinence. Like, that's
Yeah.
happening. And people are talking about, like, like that time that I decided not to wear my Depends and then I got into Target and saw something funny, or like was in there too long and like, a 4-hour Target run like later, I've peed my pants and I had
Yeah.
to literally buy new underwear. This is a true story. So not mine, but someone's I know. And I think that there's just these realities that are just not coming out, and they're sort of like surfacing of just like, it's not uncool to wear these, but like, that's not deep enough to where
Mm-hmm.
people are, in my opinion. Like, I think people want to see real things that are really happening and be able to laugh about them, be able to commiserate about them, be able to share it with their friends and say, hey, like, this is happening to me and I know it's happening to you. And aren't we like sharing this together? And they could have all those insights. Like, and they should have all those insights, and it shouldn't just be like we can like photograph this dude and make him look like he's not he's not withering away and he actually goes to the gym. Like, that's step 1. But like step 25 is like the real stories, and the like, and having fun with those real stories. And I'm really like, I'm hoping, so in my LinkedIn post, if you read it, and I'll link to it, it says like, I'm really hoping this is the beginning of that chapter, because
Yeah.
I am here for that chapter.
Totally, totally. But I think it is like the Mary pause, the perimenopause conversation. I think it's like all of those conversations. It's not just pulling out the little bit of insight. It's like we want to scoop the whole thing. It's uncovering that entire whisper conversation, doing it in a really vulnerable way, but then doing it in a really cool way. Like, women that are going through perimenopause, menopause, like are not past. Like they are the raddest women around. They're the strongest, the coolest, doing all of the things, the sexiest, looking the best. And it's like uncovering that and then being vulnerable with it, being funny with it, and then being cool with it. I feel like, to your point, like any category can really do in their own way. That's right for that
Yeah,
brand and
and
that
like,
category.
yeah, I'm here for the beginning of what I hope is a new chapter.
Great. Can't wait. Okay, the exact opposite of the mosh pit goth Depends. The Walmart Gilmore Girls ad. So
Yeah.
sweet.
So sweet, so beautiful. I mean, it's interesting. So, a very kind reader shared that with me, and she was saying that she was surprised that the people that she worked with who were younger than her, kind of like younger millennials, cusping Gen Zs, were into the Gilmore Girls. And I was saying, like, no, 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 no. Like, the Gilmore Girls is like an evergreen, like, kind of beloved thing. It's like a little bit like Love Actually. Like, it's just kind of
Mm.
but I think that it has been kind of in the zeitgeist a little bit more. And I love that they brought all the characters back and they tied it in and it was cute and like it just felt good. And I think that people would just want to feel good at the holidays and it felt nostalgic and in a kind of a fun, nostalgic way. So I was here
Yeah.
for it. I liked it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it felt and it also felt very on brand. Like I feel like Walmart picked the right thing. It didn't feel like a stretch. It didn't like all of those things. The way it was done felt very cute. Very like it felt like it was really easy on target. Like made everybody smile.
Yeah, I think it was on brand. And I think that, like, just to kind of touch on, I think they've done a good job of elevating their brand. Like, I think for a really long time, they were kind of really bargain basement and they weren't doing kind of cool things like this. And I think that they've done a good job over the last few years of kind of positioning. And
Mm,
I do think, like, Target has to look out if, like, I don't see Target doing things like this as often.
hmm.
So it's interesting to see, but I think both brands have great potential.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the Diptyque Advent candle. Like nothing much to say about it, but I loved it. I'm here for it. Kind of talking about our Advent calendars at the beginning.
So cute. I think though that, like, just to touch on it a little bit, I think that it's like people love anticipating the holidays, right? And so you have advent calendars and that's one way that people are doing that and that's a little bit more consumptive. But like for you and for a slightly older demographic like myself, like it's just like, hey, like no, it's just the anticipation of the holidays and something fun to do. And so I thought this calendar candle thing was like really fun because I was like, yeah, I totally want to light this candle every day and have my house smell amazing and be kind of like associating that smell with the holidays. So I could see way more, and not to suggest that anyone should steal ideas, but that like it was a very good idea.
It was a great idea, but again, it's not like it's using something that is already out there. It's not saying, oh, let's create this completely different idea or completely different conversation. It's like, how can we're a candle company, we're an iconic candle company. How can really, really do something with it? And it's genius. It's absolutely genius. Looks beautiful. I'm sure it smells amazing. Here for it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
AG1 vending machines. I mean, I think the airport, as travel as much as we both do, like it's such an opportunity to really do something. And I think there's some vending machines and things that have there's the I think it's the farmer's table, something like that, that does something of more salads
I've
and things
eaten,
like that.
yeah, I've eaten those salads. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're not the best, but they're not bad. And honestly, so it's funny because when I travel, I'm healthier than I am any other time. I don't drink.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't eat carbs. Like I have found that as I got older and older that like my regimen around like travel has really changed. I'm kind of like I like I'm a little bit of a extra about it. But I think that the space for airport stuff is huge. I think this really makes sense because and I think there's a lot of people like me just out in the world, by the way, who are traveling kind of healthier. And I think that there was like a kind of a phase where you would go, and don't get me wrong, I still might have the airport beer. I just don't drink on the plane. And I think that there are people who are, there's the camp of like it's 5 o'clock somewhere at 8 a.m. at every airport, and I believe that wholeheartedly. But then there's the reality of people who are traveling much healthier, and they realize, especially if you travel a lot, as I often do, like you just can't like be doing that like when you're trying to get there and like be on form when you want to arrive. But I just think there's a lot of stuff that just really hasn't caught up, and I know that bringing product into the airport is really hard. So that's where a vending machine and prepackaged goods makes so
Hmm.
much sense. Like that takes away. But I just think there's so much potential. Like, how has the Hudson News not been reinvented? Like, who is
Yeah.
buying that? And how is that not better? Why is there not a Rip bodice in every single airport? Like, that's the only books that you see people reading on planes. Like, that would be genius. I have a whole soapbox or brand in my head developing for the last 3 or 4 years around like better souvenirs. Like, I think souvenir shops should die a death, but there could be so many cool things, and like a brand could sponsor this. Like, I could see Instagram sponsoring this, of like, go in and you find cool prints from all of these artists and like people from this city, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
photographers and illustrators and people that you're finding on Instagram. Like that's what I want when I travel. Like that's what I go and I seek out, and it takes me forever to do so. I would die for a brand to bring that out. Like, I think that there's so much reinvention of just the basic stuff that's happening at airports that just needs a completely new lens. And if anyone wants to talk about it, I have endless things to say on this topic.
Yeah. But soup to nuts, there's a real opportunity to like from, when you get dropped off in the Uber, maybe even, on your way all the way through, like to really think about that experience. Cause you clearly have such a captive audience and you see certain things. You see like a playground here, or the fact that I can order Alfred coffee ahead of time at, in LAX, or, there's this newer version of you go in, you just have a credit card. There's no person there and you can just go and grab your chips and whatever else. Like there are things like that. And you see a little bit of things, but to really completely reinvent it and take over an airport to do it really right would be amazing.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to do the whole thing, but I think there's just opportunities for brands, and I think that anybody who like took the time to figure it out like could really do well. I will say, as people who land very late very often, we have ordered food through our like pickup person who's come to us with like dinners because we have to get somewhere and go to a meeting. There's just a lot of real insights in the world of services and things that very simple things like the Instagram making a poster shop or print shop, like to like more the kind of like boutique services that are specifically for somebody to come and create a brand that does that. But like just so many thoughts. It's
so many,
a real space,
a lot of opportunity. And speaking of away, like I think that's interesting because I think again, like thinking about how big the travel industry is, I don't know that enough brands that are travel brands are thinking about the airport and how to up that experience. But I think Away's campaign is interesting and a departure for them.
Yeah, they do a lot of great stuff on social. So again, if you're not following them on social, like I recommend it. Like I thought it was just funny. Like to me, the tension of the line was a little bit hard because they were like, you don't need it, you don't want a fake, and then they worked with the fake. I got it, but it was just like you have to take 10 steps, and like that was a little bit hard, but it was still very funny. And I think it was a fun way to take something that was happening in the zeitgeist that people had kind of fatigued over, and to do it in their own way. And they kind of took it and they did it in their own way that made it relevant again, even though it was kind of past, right? Like everyone was like, oh my God, how many more lookalike contests are we going to have? But then they took that and they repackaged it and reformulated it, and it wasn't just like redoing what was done, it was doing it in a new way. And so I liked that. And I think it's a cool way. Like, again, a lot of these lookalike contests were really city based. And so they can talk about Chicago, and they can talk about they can talk about travel in kind of other ways that I thought were really fun. But their team is definitely like on it, on the pulse of social. So if you're not following them, you should be. But yeah, fun.
All right.
They do lots of fun stuff. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. All right. Fun week. Yeah. Some good common themes. I feel like being brave, being innovative, but in ways that are already out there. I think, pulling up the whisper conversations and really approaching them with vulnerability and confidence. I feel like there's been some good themes throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. Is this going to be our last podcast? No, we have one more next week. Anyway,
sure
just to let you know that we will be taking a break over the holidays, as all people should. So I think we have one more of these before the holidays, but trying to plan a few fun things to share your way while we're all enjoying things. But yeah.
All right.
This was fun.
It was fun. Don't forget to vote for the South by panel.
Yes.
Till next time.
Vote for me.
Woo!
Bye.